Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting adventure. Welcome to Fantasy Fashion 101 with Wendy and Richard Pini. I'm Charlie, your fashionably late host today. But today I'm joined by pioneers in cosplay, fantasy fashion, and character design, Wendy and Richard. For over 50 years, they have contributed to the lexicon of fantasy fashion design, costumes, and cosplay. Just how much? Well, you're about to find out with this exclusive discussion with these luminaries. And we have also an exciting tour of some rarely seen costumes and a very special treat at the end of this event, revealing something no one has seen before. So stay tuned. So stay till the end, okay? We also, a few points of order before we begin. You can see now chat is open. We have people joining us from around the world. We'd love to hear from you, where you're from. The Q&A box is also open, so please submit your questions there instead of chat. Chat goes so fast, just riding through the forest. So you gotta keep up. And if you purchase one of our sold out meet and greet tickets, just stay right here and we will get started with our session at the end of this event. But enough of me. We have a lot of ground to cover, a lot of fun, and a lot of exciting little surprises. So let's get started with Wendy and Richard. Let's bring them on now. Hey, how's it going?
Hi,
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. Good to see you again. How are you guys doing?
we're so excited. We've been looking forward to this for a long time, and the moment has arrived.
The moment has arrived. We had such a great time last time. I was so excited about this.
Mm.
This is such a cool topic, and you guys have such great experience with it. But I want to start here. Cosplay and costumes as we know them now are very mainstream. Like if you go to conventions, you see thousands of people dressed up as their favorite characters or time periods, but it wasn't always that way. Costumes were more niche and less known, right?
Yes, that's so very true.
Yeah, but you were there, so you were there at the start and you helped put cosplay on the map as far as I'm concerned. But what is it about costuming that you think is so vital to the fantasy genre or art in general?
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll talk about this.
Of course.
There's costuming
Mhm.
and there's cosplay.
Yes,
Yes.
well,
Cosplay,
yeah.
the word didn't exist until
Yes.
1984.
Mhm.
You were doing this well before 1984.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, we always like to say back in the
Back in the day.
pre-1970s, it was referred to as costuming or masquerading. And it most often took place at fantasy and science fiction conventions, which were just beginning to rev up. Costuming was seen at comic book conventions, which were also just getting their start, but it was not something that was done as, shall we say, theater.
Yeah.
People would dress up as Superman or Batman,
Hmm.
but they would not portray the character. And that's really what cosplay is. The difference between costuming and masquerading and cosplay is the word play, because
Yeah.
cosplay is theater and you become the character.
At those conventions that Wendy mentioned,
Yeah.
people would dress up as Superman or Mr. Spock,
Mhm.
Hmm.
but what you did was the judge called your name, you got on stage, you had about 30 seconds to
Mhm.
show the costume, and then you left.
You just left.
And
Yeah.
you were judged on how well or not so well you had made pretty much by hand
Mm.
Yeah.
that costume.
Oh, yeah, because that's another thing. And I'm sure kids today can't even imagine it because you can get anything you want online.
It's true.
When it comes to a costume, you can put one together with various items you get online. Back then, it was all found items or handmade items,
Yeah.
and that's how you put it together.
Or peanut butter.
Or peanut.
Peanut butter Richard. What?
Richard is referring to a costume called the turd.
Do we want to know what that is, Richard? Guys.
This fellow, I mean, he had shorts on, but he covered himself in chunky peanut butter. He
Okay.
labeled himself the turd. And the thing is that the spotlights on stage were so hot
He melted.
that he melted. And immediately after that convention, all conventions, no more food
No
as costume.
food is
Please.
costume.
No, I mean it's like I think of cosplay and it's such a great way to participate in something that you love, right? It's something a way to
Mhm.
show your passion or your
Oh,
involvement
yes.
in it, right? But I don't think I could have predicted that there would be a turd cosplay with peanut butter. Do you
You
mind if
can
we
think
show?
of it, it's been done.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. That's a rule on the internet, right? I would love to show some of these images actually of you guys from that time because we got some really great stuff here and a little treat for you all. So why don't we show some things and then we'll sort of speak to what's going on here. All right. So what do we got here?
This is our first appearance together as masqueraders, as
Hmm.
Elric and Zara Zinnia. We weren't even married yet.
Oh
This
wow.
was this was 1971.
Mm.
Hmm.
Every year in the fall, there is held the World Science Fiction Convention. And in 1971, it was held in Boston, where we were living at the time, or cohabiting, I should say.
Yeah.
And Wendy, being the consummate costumer, say that 5 times fast,
Yeah.
that she has been, wanted to make these essentially from scratch so that we could enter the show.
At the time, I was living in California and he was living in Connecticut, and so I had to kind of just guess
Yeah.
his size.
His size. Yeah.
Um, you can't see it, but the Elric cape is lined with peacock feathers.
Oh wow.
And so I was thrilled that we took the prize for most beautiful at the World Science Fiction Convention.
That's so
And,
cool.
and everything about these costumes is handmade.
Yeah.
The helmet is made out of metal, thin metal, but it's built up. The sword is made from wood. Everything, there was no
No Amazon to
there was
buy
no
random.
Amazon.
No.
Yeah. Hmm. Yep.
So Wendy
Mm,
found fabrics and
mhm.
sewed it all, put it all together, and we won most beautiful.
And what I hated is when we came off the runway, girls were just flocking to him. They just hung all over him because he just looked so
It's
spectacular.
interesting what a costume character can do to people, you know? It's yeah. Well, and so okay, tell me about these here. This is actually another great one.
This is 1974, and it was another World Science Fiction Convention. This time
Yeah.
in Washington D.C. We both are fans of the writing of Robert Heinlein, and I
Yes.
think our favorite book from him is called Glory Road. It's a kind of a fantasy with science fiction undertones. And Wendy wanted to go as the two main characters, Oscar, who is the adventurer, and Star, who is a cosmic galactic a royalty.
Mm.
So
Scar and Star.
Scar and Star.
That's
So
amazing.
again, she put together these costumes.
Mm.
What you're looking at in this triptych of images is back in again in the mid 1970s. Um, a fellow by the name of Tony Isabella was writing comics for Marvel.
Yep.
He was writing The Ghost Rider, and as a lark, he decided to write us as ourselves into the comic book.
That's so amazing.
The artist needed reference, so the photo on the left got sent to the artist, and he used that to design us
In the
as
comic.
characters, but we're ourselves in
Yeah.
the Marvel universe. And
There
so
you
I've
go.
often joked that since everything Marvel is copyrighted, we are legally unable to reproduce getting permission from.
We have a couple people in the audience too. Brett and Sabrina said they own that comic, and I remember that comic
Uh-huh.
cover as well. Yeah, for sure. Um, that's amazing that you're in the Marvel world. Oh, okay, Maleficent. What do we got going on here?
Oh, well, Maleficent. I mean, I am absolutely the physical opposite in every way, shape, and form to Maleficent. I should not have been able to pull this off, but Maleficent is just, she is my queen. She
Of
was the
course, yeah.
inspiration for Winnowill,
Hmm.
she's just the dark goddess.
Force of nature.
Force of nature, and I just had to do it.
Yeah.
And what won me, I think I won first prize in this particular event, was I was able to do the speech. I
Yeah.
was able to do the voice. And this is where cosplay starts. is people were starting to give performances in
Yeah.
addition to their costumes. And that was really upping the game, leveling up.
Yeah.
And it was really impressive to the judges if you could actually perform your character.
Yeah.
The thing about cosplay, if it's done well, is you inhabit your character and
Mhm.
you do not break.
They never break. Yeah.
Yeah, even if the whole concept of costumes, walking around costumes,
All
the
costumes.
hall costumes was
Mhm.
really coming into a fad at
Hmm.
that point. And so as a hall costume, as a character, you give people the theatrical experience of actually meeting their favorite characters. So you don't want to break character and say, well, I'm just a guy in a costume. You never want to do that. You really want them to have the feeling that they're meeting their favorite character.
Of course, and in so many, I mean, and that character and sort of design came from other characters, and then it later design, like you said, it inspired When It Will. And okay, now we have the iconic.
The iconic inhabitation of
Hmm.
Mm, yes. Well, the body came from belly dancing.
Body by belly dancing. Yes, I've
I, I
heard
had
that.
I had been belly dancing for a couple of years semi-professionally. And so that's where the body came from. And we met Frank Thorne at a convention in Boston. It was a new con
it was
or
NewCon in 1976.
1976. And Frank noticed my resemblance to Sonia and asked me
Hmm.
if I would enter a Red Sonia lookalike contest that was being held in Cherry Hill, New Jersey
Oh
Later,
yes.
later that year. So Richard and I got together because this was something different from making a belly dancing costume. It had certain elements, the bikini, the top and bottom
Sure.
and all of that. But what was necessary was because I was really serious about the armor.
Yeah.
Uh, I had seen other girls attempt the costume by using just plastic belly dancing bangles,
Sure.
and it just didn't come across as real armor. We wanted the real deal.
I I've heard a
Richard,
rumor. Yeah. Did Richard?
what
Did
did you
you
do?
go to a? Where did you go? What did you do, Richard?
well, Wendy is a stickler for reality, for
Hmm.
purpose, for design, for all of these things. No shortcuts.
Oh, artists. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes. So
Um,
since Sonia's armor, such as it was had the nickname of the
steel
steel
bikini.
bikini.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Uh, she wanted to, and there's Wendy's original drawings as to how this was going to be made.
Amazing.
She wanted real steel. So I went to a place where they make washers, the little discs.
Yep.
They punch out the washer holes, the little donut holes of steel washers. And I bought up, oh, I don't know, a bag full of these things about the size of nickels.
Yeah.
Then with a power drill and a tiny, tiny little bit that I broke 18 or 19
It's
times,
true.
I drilled holes in every one of those discs so that Wendy could sew them onto a leather
Mhm.
undergarment.
See, that's another thing that, people would say, well, geez, aren't those metal discs cold? And I
Yeah.
said, absolutely not, because they're on leather backing, which is exactly
Right.
what barbarian Red Sonja would want to have.
The
Yeah.
thing, the thing did weigh 20 pounds, though.
Yes, it did.
20 pounds, Richard.
Yeah.
20 pounds. And with the
Yeah.
sword, the whole costume came to 25 pounds.
I'm sweating just thinking about 20 pounds and wearing that all
This,
day.
this is why I was never cold. People said, well,
Yeah.
it's cold, but I was lugging for hours
Working
and
out.
hours at a time,
Hmm.
just lugging that around.
And the thing is, you designed it such that, as weighty as it was, you could still dance and do a
Oh,
sword
totally.
dance and do all of the moves
Yeah.
because it was to fit you.
Hmm. There's video of me. There's one fan was able to capture footage of the Red Sonja and the Wizard Show, and that's on the ElfQuest
ElfQuest YouTube channel.
YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Hmm.
So you can watch me dancing in that costume.
That's amazing. Well, let's talk about your baby for a second, ElfQuest, because all of this creativity, all of this dedication, all this precision, all this sort of detail work. I think ElfQuest has always sort of stood out for its detailed and expressive costuming. Like Wendy, your admiration for cultures and
Oh
costumes is so
my,
evident there, right?
yes.
And ElfQuest does not take place on Earth, but the tribes have these fashion sort of amalgamations that pay homage to the rich diversity here on Earth in some ways. How did the approach for designing the clothing for different tribes or cultures within the world of ElfQuest evolve? How did that happen?
Well, the first thing I thought about was elves. How
Hmm.
do you express beings who are humanoid, but
Yeah.
not exactly human? What are the type of things that they would wear that would evoke something different and kind of otherworldly? And what would the Wolf Riders wear? Well,
Hmm.
everything they wore would be related to the forest.
Yeah.
Everything they wore would be made out of the forest. And specifically, it wouldn't be very fancy. You
Right.
know, a lot of fantasy art has extremely elaborate designs
Yeah.
for costumes with all sorts of details, and it looks beautiful. But
Yeah.
think about it. You're hunting in the woods, you want that stuff all over you to catch on the leaves and everything and make you trip and fall? You do not.
No.
So so you want simple costumes.
Yeah.
So the Wolf Riders costumes had to be simple, practical, but also kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And that's where I put together different elements to create that excitement.
Len, I have some stuff. Yeah, Richard, go ahead and then I'll show
No,
some stuff
I
too.
just want to very quickly. The concept of ElfQuest Elves, what Wendy wanted also to do was to stay away from
Yeah.
your traditional European,
Oh,
Scandinavian
absolutely. The whole
concept of
Tolkien vibe.
the
Yeah.
tall, lithe, high elves kind of things.
Mhm.
Sure.
Because they live in the forest, they had to be compact,
Yes.
little scrappy little beings,
Yeah.
Right.
and so that also fed into what you just said about they need to move quickly through the trees and through
Hmm.
brambles and all of that and not
Well,
get caught up.
but then again, I could express the what we really think about elves with
Yeah.
their beautiful flowing costumes
Yep.
and sort of sylph-like grace. I could do that with the sun folk,
Right.
which you can see right here. And of
Yeah.
course, a lot of that costuming came from my belly dancing design work. I used to actually construct costumes for my belly dancing teacher, and this is, for example, one costume that I
Sure.
built for her years ago. And so from that experience, I would construct costumes like that for the sun folk.
Makes sense. So let's talk about that. We're going to sort of contrast some of these things. So you're talking about the environment, the sort of background,
Mhm.
the need and sort of anthropological need for different things and different locations as well. It's so great. So we've got the Sun Folk, we've got the Wolf Riders,
Mhm.
uh, the Sea Elves. You can see also it's
Oh,
little bit
yes.
more built for speed. The Sea Elves, and then Snow Elves, obviously a little bit more of the frill, like sort of fur frill.
Mhm.
Um, and also, let's talk about this too. I noticed something interesting about these two characters, and it's a very like to me a classic sort of feminine, sort of like when you see fertility figures and you see like sort of feminine in various cultures over the years. This there's a pattern here that they both share that I noticed. There's that
Is
line.
it in their stature or the line of beauty?
The
The
line there, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. So if you see that, like these little areas,
Yeah.
there's a central line that goes down. That's a very like
Mhm.
classic feminine sort of symbology there.
There's
Mhm.
Was that intentional to make those sort of these mirroring images?
There are certain elements you can add to a costume that lend an aura of, I'll call it gravitas,
Okay.
an aura of power,
regality.
regalness, and
Hmm.
both Sava and Winnowill required that. Winnowill, um, uh, well, let me go back to Sava.
Yeah.
Uh, the crown is actually borrowed from the Russian, it's called a kokoshnik.
Okay.
And this is the type of crown that Russian royalty princesses will wear. Um,
Hmm.
and you'll see this in Russian fairy tale art going way, way back.
Yeah.
So I used that for Sava because it reminded me of the sun. I thought if I can put these radiating spikes on her kokoshnik,
Yeah.
then it will kind of look like the sun. And the rest of her costume just kind of sort of flowed out of that.
Got
With
it.
In the Will, the whole idea is, see, now we're looking at one of her earliest costumes there, which is
Mhm.
really kind of medieval.
Yeah.
And she is all covered up, even
Draped.
to the point where she's got kind of like a turtleneck, because
Mhm.
the whole idea was just to make her a black silhouette, a very powerful black silhouette that sort of evokes the Japanese silhouette that you
Yeah.
might see in kabuki dancer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's the difference. Sokka is kind of Russian influence, and Winnowill is kind of Japanese influence.
Amazing. And now here's another thing that we've noticed is you're pulling references from your belly dancing in your own life. You're pulling like references from culture, but also there seem to be some sort of pulling from nature as well. There's like the
Oh
way
yeah.
that birds display and do like what are we seeing here?
Well, now when you think of elves in the woods, which is an enormous cliche,
Sure.
you think of them as being friends to animals and having the animal, the whole Snow White thing with the little animals coming around and all that.
Yeah.
But that is not the Wolf Riders. They
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have animals around them as pets or that kind of thing.
Sure.
But they also do have a sense of the beauty of nature, and Moonshade in particular, she's the one who designs the clothing for her tribe and
Right.
creates it. And there are many times in which she reflects elements of nature in her designs. And this one particularly stood out for me because I knew we were going to feature this costume in a story that was very dramatic. It's one of
Mm.
the most dramatic stories in the ElfQuest canon. And so the red-winged blackbird, the contrast of the black and deep blue and red, just to me evoked a kind of a powerful mood.
Now,
Yeah.
question, if I may.
Mm. Please.
Wolf Riders would not fashion and dress to necessarily blend into the forest, but there's an element of mimicry
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
yeah,
that seems to be about halfway. There's almost like a kind of
yeah,
hat tip to nature.
yeah, totally.
Yep. Yep.
That's part of it too. Thanks for
I
pointing.
mean, nature, yeah, that seems to make sense. Nature is sort of our first palette art-wise, right? Like it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
something that's the aesthetic that we know before
Yeah.
most anything, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one that I'd love to talk about. Yeah,
This is one of my
yeah.
favorites. I haven't made this one yet, but I swear to goodness I'm going to.
Tell them what this is from also because I want to introduce this other project that you had done.
Well, I saw the photo of this incredible octopus, and
Mhm.
it made me think of Ursula from Walt Disney's Little Mermaid.
Yep.
And I thought, if I were to be the costume designer for a theatrical production of The Little Mermaid, this is what I would do for the Sea Witch.
Love it. I love it.
And Wendy took the elements from real life and morphed them
Yeah.
Yeah.
to a costume.
Yeah, it would require a lot of airbrushing over Panay velvet. I think I can do it.
Yeah, I think you could. And there's a lot of people, the chat is totally lit up right now. They think it's gorgeous. One person, Kristen, said, I would wear that every day to the store, to work, to the post office, every day.
Now,
That's
here,
It really is beautiful, isn't it?
here's a thing where technology would come to your aid instead of providing you a crutch, because
yeah,
all of those blue dots, you could light them up now with LEDs.
Those
You
could be
couldn't do that,
LEDs. No,
40 or 50 years ago
yeah.
with the costumes that were there, and then
yeah,
because batteries and lights that could do that just didn't exist.
that's right.
So this is another fun fact about fashion. There's some bell bottoms here. How do current trend fashion moments show up in your work? And then
Oh my
that's what
goodness,
it is for a long time.
every decade, the characters reflected certain fashion trends
Yeah,
of the decade. The Wolf Riders were born right in the middle of the flower child hippie,
yeah,
times, right in
yeah.
the early 70s. And so they kind of dressed the way you would see some people just walking down the street.
There you go. And then
Uh,
it's locked in place for like eternity. So then you get to go back on there and see, yes, that was a thing that happened.
That was a thing that happened. And then in the 80s, when we did Siege at Blue Mountain, they all looked like rock stars, like a
Yeah.
rock hair
Yeah,
band.
the big hair. I know. That's so great. Love it. I know. Yeah, Sabrina was already saying that. Yep.
This is something I want to point out, and I don't know if you can go backward to
Of
the
course. Yeah.
uh,
Which one would you like?
the immediately preceding where we are now.
Yeah, the
Okay.
shot of Cutter and the bell bottoms.
Not a problem. Yeah, of course. Here you go.
This is something that Wendy will do when she draws a costume. She will also provide everything you need to make that costume. Because
Yes.
noticing the little stitcheries, the
Yeah.
little leather stitches up the side of the thing. So you know that this was made from a sheet of leather that got folded into a cylinder and then sewn up there.
And those stitches also figured as an important part of the story.
Indeed.
So,
But this is what she will do
Mm.
for those fans who want to make the costume. She will give as many clues as it makes sense to without overburdening the art
Yep.
as to how to fashion that thing in real life.
mhm.
Well, and this is how we know it's rooted in story. Tanya just said fashion and function, which means you're not just sort of doing the embellishment or the decoration for its own purpose, which we have seen in some fashion or some fantasy rather, but you're also giving us like what that lifestyle is like, what the process is, what they're actually in reality having to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Another area of this too that really sort of fascinates me about fashion and character design is, and I'm curious to hear your particular perspectives on this. What role do you think fashion plays in signaling a character's personality, growth, their family relations, like all these like cultural background things within a story? Because as an actor or whatnot, you think about costume, but what does it mean to you guys?
I personally think it's absolutely essential when you're creating a character to give a lot of thought to how they
Mhm.
will appear and how they will dress.
Yeah,
And if you want to show relationships between characters,
yeah,
I'm thinking back to One Eye and Clearbrook, the earliest designs of their costumes. You could really see that they were a pair and that there were real strong similarities in
hmm,
their outfits. Nightfall and Redlands, I have always put in various shades of green and orange and golden brown. Those are their colors, and
yeah.
throughout the whole series, they've worn those.
Well, going back even earlier, now forgive my memory, but Lita and Rayek with
Linton,
the
Hmm.
matching uh,
yeah,
lion's tooth.
he gave her the lion's tooth necklace, and he himself was wearing the very same lion's tooth
Right.
or lion's claw beads to show that there was this supposed connection between the two.
Right, right. Which then had, yeah, there's a lot of storytelling elements there. And then let's talk a little bit to the evolutions.
Oh,
And
good
then
old Moonshade.
I know, let's talk about this. Tell me about the evolution here.
Well, Moonshade, she is our fashion. If the
Mhm.
Wolf Riders have a fashionista,
Yeah,
it's Moonshade, and this is how she has appeared over the years. This is some beautiful fan art.
I love
Uh,
it.
the final costume is Moonshade did something very shocking and radical in Final Quest. She gave up her wolf blood because she wanted to evolve and to live in the palace and
Yeah.
become more like a high one. So she
Hmm.
dressed more like a high one
Mm,
after that.
beautiful. And again, to this sort of point about, let me get here we go. Let's go back a little bit. So let's talk. I mean, again,
Oh yeah,
I'm
this is
you can
yeah,
see relationships right away, right? Like,
father and daughter.
mhm.
Yes. Hmm.
But in the hat there, obviously
Yes.
there's sort of a the way it's positioned, but also the design of it. Like this
Yeah.
is a perfect example where you can show instant connection between characters, right?
Yes, absolutely. We didn't get to see Rain Song and Rain interact as father and daughter per se, but you
Hmm.
do know the connection between the two from their clothing.
Right. I mean, again, pick nose and trinket hat there, yeah. And
Yes,
like, yeah,
there's a necklace, and
there's the
Mm.
necklace.
but in that second thing, he has changed. He's wearing now the sun symbol
Hmm.
He's still got his headband, so that has changed, but he has adapted the Sun Folk sun to a go back way of dressing.
Yeah, that was
Right.
another thing that was fun to do is when one character from a specific tribe blended in with another tribe. I
Right.
had a lot of fun blending the costumes so that there still could be representations of where they originally came from,
Yep.
melded with the new uh, costume of the new tribe.
Right. Yeah. And then I think you see these familial connections, these tribal connections, these sort of like evolutions from one to another, whether there's like moving between sides or they're evolving over time. But what I love it is the costuming is as expressive and sort of expansive as the storytelling
Mhm.
itself because it gives us. I'm a big fan of layers. You know, you go to Disneyland, there's like 16
Oh,
different layers that
yes,
you can experience that in. You read a
yes.
great book and you see how all the little all the things wend and weave and you just go, "Oh my God, it was them the whole time." That's the detail of that to be able to do the visual art plus the storytelling. It's just it makes you
Well,
feel like you're immersed.
this all comes from my theater background because in theater,
Makes sense.
you want to be wearing a costume in which you can express yourself in every way.
Yeah.
You want the costume to become one of your props
Yeah.
and to say even more about you than your words or your actions.
Right, right. Well, let's talk about words and actions too. In a medium where I think fashion can lean, toward archetypes like a barbarian, like we were talking about earlier.
Oh,
Barbarian,
sure.
sorceress. This is how an elf is.
Yeah.
How do you avoid, for both of you, how do you avoid cliches while still tapping into the emotional power of those iconic looks? Like,
That's a really good question. I think that a cliche is like, oh, Santa's elves, for example, everybody kind of has it in their
yeah,
head what Santa's elves look like. So our elves really, really avoided those cliches of the little curlicue shoes with the bells on them and stuff like that. Fantasy is just rife with imagery that goes way, way back to the 1800s. Famous illustrators Rackham, Dulac, moving into the uh, ni- uh, 19th century or 20th century,
20th.
20th. Um, th- they they would use the elements that one associated with fairy, like wearing
mm,
leaves and wearing
yeah,
flowers and things like for decorative purposes.
yeah,
Okay. And decoration is fine. A little bit of it goes a long way, though, when you want the clothing to be practical and to fit into your lifestyle, which is, in the case of our elves, one of high action.
right.
So I think that's how a lot of the cliches were avoided in just being practical.
Thinking about it,
Mm.
Arthur Rackham, Dulac, all those guys, they never had to do a comic. They
Oh,
never
heck
had to do
no.
panel to panel, page to page
Oh man,
action progression.
Hmm.
yeah,
And that combined with you wanted to stay away from the European, from the Scandinavian,
Hmm.
from the
sure.
Tolkien-esque,
Hmm.
because or from the commercial Santas, elves,
Yes.
jolly little people. Um, you wanted these elves to be primal, to
Primal
be
and tribal.
tribal,
Hmm.
animalistic, though, to a certain
Hmm.
extent,
Yeah,
living in the
Yes.
woods, living like animals, needing to move like animals.
Hmm.
So you made the conscious decision to simply not take anything from all of those existing tropes.
Yes.
yeah,
And then, using what you said earlier, they have to move through, so the costumes have to be kind of lean and mean.
Hmm.
Then except you did give Scouter the Santa's elves hat in one.
Scouter had tassel. Scouter had a peak and a tassel. Yes, he did.
yeah.
Couldn't re
You got a little nod, but you can't. Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to take one archetype because actually somebody said earlier Sava and Winnowill are examples also of like feminine power in some ways.
Oh,
Let's take
totally.
the wicked queen archetype for a second, because we have these. I have these two images here of Madame Kabbalah from your Mask of the Red Death project.
Madame Kabbalah.
It's like, I mean, can we talk about that? For those who aren't aware, can we talk about the Mask of the Red Death for a moment? Because that's a powerful and very timely, but very powerful story.
Well, I so appreciate that. I call ElfQuest my life's work, but Mask of the Red Death is the love of my life because it's
Mhm.
pure theater and it's a musical and it's just I got to absolutely pull out all the stops with the costumes.
Yeah,
Madame Kavala is our evil diva, uber villainous
I mean,
of
like,
Mask. She's so bad. I mean, she's worse than Winnowill in some ways. I think Winnowill would be like, "Hey, girl." You know?
well,
Uh,
speaking of that, it's interesting to look at their costumes. So,
mm,
with Winnowill, you've got like a side that's draped and a side that's exposed, a side that's like I'm here and I'm out there. They each almost their psychology is demonstrated in their
that is
costume.
perfect. Did you observe that on your own?
I did. Well, and then in discussions about
Fantastic.
it, it was like, oh, there's a sensual side and this sort of
Mhm.
like draped, and you don't know what she's gonna do.
Yes.
And then with Madam, it's a whole other layer.
Well, Madame Kabbalah is right out there. She uses every asset she has to get what she wants.
Yeah.
And she is absolutely out there with her sexuality and will
Mhm.
use her body. She will use everything she's got because she is someone who needs to have and have and have, and she can never have enough.
Yeah.
Winnowill's not like that.
Hmm.
Winnowill actually, the best villains are the villains who want the same thing as the hero.
Right.
They just go about it a different way. Winnowill wants the same thing as Cutter wants. She wants to unite all the elves. She wants to find them all and bring them all together and take them home.
Yeah.
She just wants them to be pure. She doesn't want any trace of the world of Two Moons attached to them.
Yeah.
So, in a way, her motivations are much purer than Madame Kabbalah's.
Yeah.
Uh, Winnowill is not greedy. She doesn't want to have. She just
Hmm.
wants to control and make what she wants happen.
Yeah.
So,
We get a little of the pathology. We get a little bit of like the angle and goal in what they're doing. Let's talk about the gowns for a second.
uh,
Uh, in Match of the Red Death, how fun was that for you to design? These
how
are.
fun was that? Can you imagine?
Oh man.
Again,
Uh,
you can see that Madame Kabbalah has one thing on her mind, it's to manipulate and
Yeah.
to get,
mhm.
whatever it might be.
Yeah, and to shock and to impress and to be
Yeah.
the center of attention at all costs. And
Oh,
she is.
it's
Um,
amazing.
well, designing the gowns, I mean, of course, I mean, I'm crazy about theatrical fashion. I'm
Yeah.
a Bob Mackie fan from way back, and I just took all kinds of inspirations from Carnival, from the wildest
Yeah.
costumes I've ever seen, and I thought about, okay, what works on stage? Because one of the things in Mask is a lot of the characters have to make quick changes. We go through all the seven colored chambers that Edgar Allan Poe put in his story, Mask of the
Yep.
Red Death.
Yep.
And so there have to be costumes for each one of those colors. And the actors are going to have to make these quick changes from costume to costume, color to color. So,
Natalie in the audience also made, I think, a joke that Richard you would appreciate. Oh, Madame Kabbalah, girlfriend slayed with her fashions. There's a dad joke for everybody. Enjoy. She slayed for sure. It's a yep. She's
okay, she
slay
slayed with
girlfriend.
her fashion. Now,
Yep.
why would Richard appreciate
Because it's
What?
wordplay.
wordplay?
It's
Of
a dad
course.
joke. She's slaying and she's slaying and she there's a fashion slay and there's a slaying. Anyway,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't want to
she
spoil anything.
indirectly.
If
Yes, and Santa's elves are on their sleigh, which, the reindeers.
that's all. Okay, but don't get them started. All right, we're gonna. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is we have this surprise treat in store for you all, which
Hmm.
I can't wait to get to. And I'm sorry if I'm speeding through this, but I'm just very excited about this next section. But I guess as we close out this section before we get to our next main event here, um, what is it like for you both to see your characters in cosplay? We've been talking about design and
Oh,
costume and cosplay. What is that experience like?
Oh,
we can never get enough of it. It never gets old. Some truly expert cosplayers have just brought the characters to life. One of the most extremely accurate ones was a 7 months pregnant woman who was in beautiful, beautiful condition physically. She just happened to have this baby bump, and she portrayed Brill, the life mate of
Yep.
Sunstream,
Yep.
and Brill was shown as being equally pregnant in the
you know,
graphic novel.
I
So,
thought you were going to go all the way back to 1980 with Rain Song.
oh yeah,
Rain
the
Song
first rains,
did was pregnant when
she
she did
was
that
pregnant.
cut too.
Yeah, she was. But
That's devotion.
but Brill was just stuck with me because she was in Brill's bikini, which is very
Mm,
so this lovely, beautiful, very pregnant fan really
so
did an
cool.
accurate costume.
Um, we
Oh, well, you want to talk about this?
well, ElfQuest started in 1978, and it took a little while to build up a momentum, a readership, a fandom. Um, this is 1980 or 81.
81.
Yeah.
Uh,
84, 80, yeah.
no,
No,
it's
Yep.
earlier than that.
yeah.
So 80 or 81. And this was San Diego Comic-Con, which
Yep.
was then as now a very big convention. And
Yeah.
they had on Friday or Saturday night the masquerade ball, and it
Mm.
was a traditional masquerade. You dressed up as a character, you went on stage, you were there for a minute, and you went off stage.
And for
Uh,
this one, Gary Owens, voice of Space Ghost, was the
Oh,
host.
that's so awesome.
yes, and we were absolutely gobsmacked to discover at this masquerade ball that not one but two separate groups of fans, one larger than the other.
Mhm.
One was 50 or 60, one was 30. I don't remember.
No, it was about 30-30.
No, one was bigger.
Well,
One was
all
bigger.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
they each had done an entire tribe plus one
Oh my
of
goodness.
ElfQuest costumes. And they came on the stage, and it was pandemonium, and it
Mm.
was chaos, and it was wonderful. And
And we got made fun of the whole convention by other professionals who would come up and say, if I see another elf.
I mean, there's so much to choose from, honestly.
there,
Like,
Oh,
you have picked out a dozen or so.
look at Oddbit. That's one of my favorites.
It's just wonderful. And you ask how we feel. We, to this day, we've been doing this almost 50 years. And to this day, somebody comes up to us at a convention in cosplay, and we are honored. We are
Mhm.
delighted. We are honored. Um, and the thing about ElfQuest is we have seen cosplay done by young and old, tall and short,
mhm.
Every size.
black, brown, white, red,
Mm.
yellow, maybe even polka dot for all I know. It doesn't matter. The people who do the costumes, who do the cosplay, do it because they just love what ElfQuest is to them, and we love that they do that.
Mm.
I mean, same. And here
Oh,
again, here we
yeah.
go. So it's also generational because we're seeing, many generations, and also you can see the inspiration that you've provided, come to life. So I love, and I know I've seen some photos of you guys also continuing to do costume work, right?
Absolutely. I love that Red Sonja has lasted through the years. I'm not sure I agree with the direction they're taking her now
Mhm.
in the comics, but
Yeah.
the spirit of Red Sonja is the same, and there are a number of women cosplayers who are still carrying on Red Sonja's true spirit, and I happily turn her over to them.
Mm. Well, so we've talked a lot about fashion and costume and cosplay, but I think we have a fun treat for everybody today. There's also a very special surprise announcement at the end of this, so stay tuned. But we are going to get a glimpse into your studio space, Wendy, where you've created and continue to create costumes and cosplay over the decades.
Well, I call this my workshop.
Okay, it's a workshop.
I do artwork there, of course, but it is really set up to house and display and enable me to continue with costuming and just crafting.
All right, well, so we're getting a very exclusive sneak peek here. So what we're going to do is transfer over to another camera here, and Richard and Wendy are going to take us through and show us some things and teach us some stuff. So you all are getting a very exciting special field trip. So why don't we head over there? I'm gonna mute you guys here and turn off this one, and then yeah, we'll get started. Let's just get started. Love it. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going into their studio. So if you have questions, use that Q&A box. And then our studio side, whenever you're ready, you can turn on your camera and mic. But we're going to see something not many people have gotten to see, including some things that are very specific to what we've just been talking about. So it's really special. And then don't forget, at the very end of this, there's a very special announcement, and it's a big one. It's a very big one. Let's do, all right, so I'm going to get this going. And we have the technology. So we're going to be doing lots of magical things here with technology. And we've choreographed this whole, yes, we did it. All right, let's get your audio going. I can't hear you yet, but I believe it is.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my workshop. As you can see behind me, Cutter and Lita are the greeters of the workshop. And these are a couple of cloth sculptures that we had on display in 2000 at San Diego Comic-Con. They have survived through the years, and so they are now our official greeters in the workshop. Well, okay, to get started, I've arranged to have a number of what I consider to be the most spectacular costumes we have here on display. These come from Renaissance fairs and also from the Labyrinth Ball, which is one of the most famous masquerade ball professional costuming events. And so what you're looking at here is, we call her the Black Fairy. I wore this in 2009 at the Labyrinth Ball. And what I wanted to start by explaining is that what you're looking at is not the type of thing that you could just go online and buy the elements of the costume. I really had to put this together from found items. For example, the wings are just a pair of plain black wings that you could get at, for example, Spirit Halloween. But I took them and I decided, okay, I'm going to use a peacock feather theme with this. So I sprayed on the turquoise glitter that you can see, and I attached the peacock feathers with spray-on glue, and then all the elements of the costume became turquoise and black. And it involved a lot of hand sewing, particularly the bodice, and just putting together a lot of elements to create sort of a raggedy witch-like, because she's supposed to be a very mysterious witch-like figure. And so she was a very successful costume at the Labyrinth Ball. Over here, and I'm excited to show you this. Well, first you can see my collection of masks. over the years. These come from everywhere in the world. And a number of them come from Renaissance fairs, because I think Renaissance fairs are a great resource to actually put you face to face with the craftspeople that make some of the most fabulous costume elements in the world. Renaissance fairs have really been one of my favorite things to do over the years. The costumes, all right, you're getting kind of a view of the whole room now, but I want to point out that, as was talked about earlier, ethnicity can sometimes be a great influence on the type of costume that you design. Right now, I'm currently obsessed with the Han fad, Han type costuming that's going on in Asia right now. It's just gorgeous. And being Caucasian, I didn't want to go online and buy actual Han costuming that, I just would not be comfortable wearing that pre-existing costumes. But I did put together something that is very reflective of Hanfu type materials, and particularly the embroidery and the sheer fabric is a characteristic of Hanfu. And I wore this at Anime Bonsai a couple of years ago, and people were very thrilled with it. So it's kind of a salute to Chinese cosplay. This one is exciting. It is one of my older pieces. I would say it's close to 40 years old. And again, it's an example of something you could not go online and find the elements to. This had to be put together from scratch. What this is, and I think you'll be very excited to hear, is this was a complete dress. This part of it was attached to the skirt, so it was a long sleeve dress. The dress I found at a place called Starwares in Venice, California, where movie stars would sell their discarded costumes and outfits that they no longer wanted. So guess who this used to belong to? Shirley MacLaine. I couldn't resist because the fabric was so beautiful. But instead of just keeping it as a dress, I took it apart. I made it into a skirt and jacket, and I added the fringe and the beading elements and the trims and some more jewels. So, in other words, this is an example of taking something that exists and then you modify it to make it more personal, more your own expression of a costume. So this is one of my favorites. I'll probably never let it go. Some of you might have seen a photo of me in this costume, which I wore fairly recently in 2018 at a Renaissance fair in California. This is what I call Wolf Mother. And this is another example of putting together found items with items that you make. So you're not going to believe this. I found this incredible elfin shawl that's made out of faux suede. I found it at Marshall's, of all places. And I want to emphasize to you that if you want to be a costumer and to make your costumes more original by making them out of found stuff, you should really haunt places like Marshall's and maybe Macy's backstage, because you're going to find things that people don't buy. They wouldn't even think of wearing them in normal life. But some things you will find there are very costumey. And so this was one of my lucky finds. And I kind of built the costume around this. And so created the skirt with the fringe and then the underdress, which also has fringe. So I've got I've got a double layer of fringe going on. I had this pendant. The wolf's head pendant is something that I bought, I believe, at another Renaissance fair. And so I added the elements of the metal. These are runes. I'm very fond of runes. So I added them to give the pendant a little more sparkle, a little more jazz. And the belt is very wolf ridery, and again, fringe. This costume is all about fringe. The thing about Wolf Mother is that she's a character that's supposed to be like over 100 years old. So I loved wearing the aging makeup and the white wig. And the reaction to her at the Ren Fair was just wonderful because, I kind of hobbled along. That's another thing. You portray the character with your body. And so I kind of hobbled along. And people were really curious as to who I was and what tribe I was related to. And it was kind of like being treated like Gandalf. I got a feeling of what it's like to be a Gandalf wizard type. This is the oldest costume in my collection. This is one of the earliest belly dancing costumes when I was a belly dancer. So you're looking at vintage. It's kind of falling apart because it's so old. This is like 45 years old. But the beading and everything, I believe, actually comes from Egypt. And this is a found item put together with another found item that's equally old. And so on and on to the layers. But this is the type of costume that we used to wear as belly dancers in the early 70s. Pretty accurate to its ethnic origins, but also kind of raggedy, kind of hippie, like very bohemian. And so this is an example of what costuming was like more than 40 years ago. All right. What you're looking at now is probably I'll call her my masterpiece. This is Turandot, and she is based on Puccini's very famous character, Turandot, the Ice Princess, in his famous unfinished opera because he passed away before he finished the last act. Turandot is an ancient Chinese fairy tale about a princess who had 3 riddles. And anyone who could answer the 3 riddles, if they were of royal blood, she would have to marry. But the riddles were so hard, they couldn't be solved. So many, many princes met the chopper. Again, she's a very powerful female goddess figure almost. And I've always been attracted to portraying characters like that. So you could say Turandot is a sister of Winnowill, very icy, very unapproachable, and really has her own agenda. The elements of the costume are, it's the idea of expressing ice and snow. So I found in a fabric store, it might even have been Joanne, I'm not sure. I found this lace, which actually has Chinese elements. This kind of a flowing S curve here is a very strong Chinese element that you see in their portrayals of phoenixes. And so I said, okay, this is Chinese. And I was able to make the incredible sleeves with this repeated pattern in them. And then I also cut out a section of the pattern and added this, what I call the snowflakes, to the front of the costume. because I really, really wanted to just continue with the motif of ice and snow for her. The gold, of course, is to express the royalty, the fact that she is a princess. So Turandot is my most recent fancy costume. I wore it at Labyrinth in 22. And I kind of stopped there because I figured, how in the world am I going to top Turandot? But we'll see. Here on the table, I've decided to show you some craftsy things that might be helpful to you in as a costumer. You can make props for yourself. Because you see, it's not just about the costume. You also want to think about the props, the various things, whether they're weapons or scrolls or whatever says something about your character. This is Turandot's fan. This was originally just a plain fan of purple, pardon me, not purple, turquoise feathers. You have to imagine this as just plain feathers with no beading or jewels on it. And I just gradually added the jewels, which I obtained at craft stores, you know, like Michael's and Joann's, although Joann's is gone now. It used to have wonderful things like this. And this is an interesting touch on the back. It's very subtle, but if you can see the woman's face in the back, I decided this says something about Princess Turandot, just the feminine trapped, because she is trapped in her own agenda. So this was a very important element of the costume, and you can use it to, you really can use different props to express yourself when you're wearing your costume. Pirate fairs and pirates at Renaissance fairs are really popular right now. So I wanted to show you that you don't have to spend a lot of money to create a very fancy pirate hat. This is where feathers come in. They're not very expensive, and you can find them at most crafting stores. But this is just a plain straw hat. You know, I believe I got it at a bargain basement. And another thing that I want to emphasize is do collect things. Collect things that aren't what you want them to be, but could be what you want them to be if you add things to them. You know, use your imagination. If you spot something and you think, oh, I could make something really great out of that, pick it up. Don't hesitate. You might have to hang on to it for a while, but it's going to turn out to be what you want. Again, another example. I collected these fabulous dyed peacock feathers. I've had them for a long time. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I've got them. And, you know, someday a costume might suggest itself. And here, coming along the table, I am more of a gluer than a sewer. If I can glue it, because I have to work fast because I've got a lot of deadlines to meet. So if I need to make a costume, I can't take a lot of time sewing it. So I have just about every kind of fabric glue and jewel glue known to crafting. And I highly recommend it because they really are permanent. They really are effective. You just have to follow the instructions and use them correctly. And it's a great way to do a costume fast. Here's another example of things that I've collected Now, these might not be something that the beading is gorgeous. This might not be something that would be part of a costume, but sometimes you can collect things that you can take apart. And here's an example right here of this used to be a coral and turquoise necklace that it was very old that I had for a long time. And I decided, since it was kind of falling apart, the strings that it was strung on were falling apart literally. So I decided to take it all apart and make a choker out of it. So you can another thing you can do is collect one kind of thing, take it apart, and make another kind of a thing. And of course, you always want to have a sewing kit well stocked with every possible color of thread. You may have noticed these. This in particular is a prop that I use with Wolf Mother. Richard and I found these staffs at a Renaissance fair, and we each chose the wolf's head that we wanted, and we each decorated our own staff. So this one is mine with the rune Laguz, which means flow, and this one is Richard, which he decorated with hematite, which he says is related to lodestone. And of course, since Skywise is Richard's elf, the hematite sort of evokes the lodestone. Well, moving on. Oh, this is Baby. This is our little guard dog, and she's, as you can see, she's heroically guarding the workshop. Um, so we're coming to the final display here. These costumes were featured at CradleCon last year. It was an event that was celebrating costuming, and I was very honored to be celebrated for the work that I've done over the years. So what you're looking at here is this one I call My Fair Lady. And I wore this one to a Renaissance Fair day that was a time travel day. This is something that Renaissance fairs are doing now, is you can wear costumes from any era on their designated time travel day. And so I was My Fair Lady, and it was quite a smashing hit that day. This one is called Queen of Atlantis. And this is an example of a costume put together from all separate items. Nothing in this costume is related to anything else, but it is put together to be made into a unified thing. And my goal was iridescence. Since she's Queen of Atlantis, I really wanted to evoke the sea and the shimmering quality of fish scales. And so everything about the costume, and it's all found items or sewn together items from different places. I especially wanted to show you these. These are actual real power shells. They are glued onto a cardboard backing. And these also on her bodice here are also real shells, iridescent. So these are details you want to think about when you are creating a character. She is not a character from any story. She is a made up imaginary character. And when you're doing that, you certainly can do that in cosplay, is make up your own character. You have to think about all the elements that need to go into the costume that tell the person who meets you who this character is. Finally, we have, I guess, my favorite. I really have to say she's my favorite. This is Lady Red Death. And I wore this costume again also in 2009 on the second night of the Labyrinth Ball. And you can see the photo here. This was my very dear friend, Valaford de Ambershade. And he inspired me to be his partner that night as Lady Red Death. So I made my costume to reflect his. His costume is based on Lon Chaney's Red Death from the Phantom of the Opera silent film. And so we were quite the team that night. Val passed on, and I miss him very much. So I think of this costume now as a tribute to him. And of course, Mask of the Red Death. She would definitely be a costume at the masquerade ball at Mask of the Red Death.
That was
So,
incredible.
thank you for touring my workshop with me.
Wow.
As you can see at the very back there, Maleficent is watching over all because she's kind of like my spirit animal. And I have
Incredible.
a lot of fun down here, and I really enjoy working down here. So this is, you're getting a pretty good look at what life is like in Chez Pini.
Wow. Wow. Well, that was, I mean, I'm blown away. I don't know about you guys, but thank you so much for sharing that space with us. They're going to be coming back in here in just a moment. But wow, Richard, I mean, incredible. What an honor to see that stuff. What a tremendous gift.
Was that okay?
That, you guys, that was phenomenal. People have been raving. People have been, I mean, like the chat is absolutely lost their minds. Thank you for that.
Oh, I wish we could have heard.
Well,
I mean, I'm just going to send you screenshots. There's just like so much to say. I mean, and a few of the things that also stuck out in the crowd, the detail work, the found object thing. You can't buy what you're creating off the shelf. This is about creating something. This is about finding, developing, building, collecting, and then yeah.
the thing is, as I said earlier, there are some aspects of living in 2025. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Etsy, you
Yes.
can find certain things that you couldn't find 40 or 50 or 20 or 30 years ago that are really, really cool. But the flip side of that is you find something that you think is really, really cool on Amazon. 500 other people have also found it.
Yep.
So you're
Mhm.
going to, it's not as original as it could be. It's what you do with the pieces. And as Wendy has said many times, and I will repeat, go to yard sales, go to Goodwill and Salvation Army,
Stores.
thrift stores. Even if something is damaged,
Yeah.
but otherwise looks really neat, get it, cut away the damaged part, find a way to use it. It's how you make it your very own. So you are unique among, I remember a show, Star Trek was brand new, and there was a masquerade, and there were like a dozen Spocks because everybody thought, I'm going to do Mr. Spock,
Everybody's
and I'm
in
going to be
Spock,
the only
yeah.
one there. There were a dozen of them on stage. It was awkward.
Yeah.
Well-
I know now they do like have all of that one character come on stage, and I think you can tell the difference. They don't have people up on stage that often that have the same cookie cutter costume. They want to see people who are really going for it. And
Absolutely.
And
yeah,
again, you want the costume to look good and you want to be the character.
yeah.
Uh, nothing is more jarring than to see a beautiful costume come by and you know who the character is, and then
Mhm.
whoever's inside the costume just isn't that character.
This is the advice I would give to the Red Sonjas of today. This is the one thing I would ask them to do to level up is stay in character and have attitude. A number of the girls that are doing Red Sonja now are still a
Yeah.
little too modest, a
Yeah.
little bit shy,
Yeah.
smile too much. I used to sit back in my chair and put my feet up on the table. And if anybody just looked at me wrong, I would just rake them over the coals.
Yeah, it gives you license to step outside yourself and into a character, but have at it. I
Absolutely.
agree. I agree.
Yes.
Well, Wendy, Richard, thank you for spending time with us today, and thank you for the everlasting legacy of ElfQuest. And I've seen your lines at the conventions. For anyone who is not going to go to a convention, if you see these guys are going to appear, you have fan suits line up, and it's obvious why. There's so much genius here, and we can't overstate what it means to us. So thank you for your impact on this, on fashion, on
Thank you.
Thank you
cosplay.
for doing this. You are a master at it.
Mhm.
You can find out on elfquest.com on the calendar page where we're going to appear, and we love it, love it, love it if you show up in costume. We will photograph the heck
Please.
out of you, and we will spread you all over social media. So
Yes.
be prepared.
Yep. And don't forget to order book 2 from Shop Stands. I just put the link there too. It's coming out this week. But we should also talk about this special announcement. It's anybody in the chat want to know what the special announcement is by chance? Who wants to know what the special announcement is? And there we go. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna kick this off. I'm so proud to be able the one to be able to say this, but before we go, we've got some breaking ElfQuest news that we know you're going to love. So you're all the first to know. So drum roll, please. Well, let me show you what we're talking about. Dark Horse Comics will be releasing ElfQuest, the Final Quest Complete Edition on February 10th, 2026. This beautiful full color hardcover graphic novel collects the entire Final Quest series into one volume, complete with this gorgeous new cover by Wendy Pini and never before seen extras. It's available for pre-order now. How ecstatic are you guys? And the new cover, Wendy, what's happening?
What?
What's happening?
Well,
What's happening?
Final Quest. First of all, Final Quest, when we announced Final Quest way back in like 2012, 2013, everybody freaked out because final, what does that mean? ElfQuest is ending? Well, not really. No, a large story arc is coming to a conclusion, but ElfQuest is not ending, and we have plans going to 2028 and beyond.
We do.
Final Quest was a 24, actually 25 issue comic book series that concluded on February 28th, 2018, 40 years to the very day from the first appearance of ElfQuest. It is one of Wendy's most absolutely gorgeous pieces of work.
It's both of ours, and I consider Final Quest Richard's and my finest hour.
So far. But yeah, there were a couple dozen comic book issues. Dark Horse reissued it in 4 paperback compilations, collections. They very quickly went out of print, and people have been wondering where the heck can I get that? There's also the complete ElfQuest Volume 8, which is all of this material, well, 7 and 8, now that I'm thinking about it, in black and white, so it's inexpensive, but we have always wanted, and Dark Horse is great at doing this, we have always wanted all of Wendy's lovely color work to be collected between 2 covers, and for the first time ever, if you have seen the Stargazer's Hunt collected volume. What a gorgeous piece of work that is. Well, Final Quest is going to outdo it because this is over 600 pages of stuff. It's all in full color. As Charlie just said, as Dark Horse has announced, Wendy and I have put together stuff you have never, ever seen before as the bonus material. this is going to be a crowning achievement book
I think so.
in the history of ElfQuest. We're very proud. We're very excited. So that is the news, and
That's the
we
news.
hope it makes you a fraction as excited as we have been.
Well, I'm excited, and there's keep an eye out on the ElfQuest social channels because you're going to see the development of the cover and a couple of other little bits and bobs, and it is available for pre-order on Dark Horse now. We also, as a thank you for joining us today, we are Shop Stance is giving you a discount good for the ElfQuest shop minus the books from now until Monday. Use QuestOff15, which I will put QuestOff15. Put it in the chat so that you can use that to get a little discount if you want to go grab some more goodies. If you want to get class 2 and 3, or sorry, yeah, class 2 and 3, and go get those as well. Get 15% off. But thank you again, Wendy and Richard. This has been phenomenal. It's such a pleasure to talk to artists who care so much and have such an expertise. So thank you.
Oh, well,
Well,
Charlie, you are a great host. We love working with you, and we look forward to the next class.